let's do a sketchbook tour. And I have 2 sketchbooks ready to show you. So this sketchbook was actually started halfway through last year. Now, I've just been doing sketchbooks on and off. I've been obsessed with The Sims lately, so it's just been a case of whenever I want to do some sketching in my sketchbook, I'll do it. This is a Hey Carla business card, just stuck down to the sketchbook because there was some leftover residue from the original sticker. This is a Scrawlerbox sticker. So really speaking, I couldn't actually remember when I started the sketchbook at all. So the art on this and the next few pages are actually planning stages for my illustration known as Tivy, and it was done with the Hey Carla inks. I really love all the overlapping ideas. So there we have the original concept for Tivy. Originally she was actually going to be in the water, but I decided to actually have her outside of the water and have more of her body showing, because this composition also reminded me of Bailey J's picture called Lack. It had the same sort of vibe to it, but I wanted it to have more greens and blues and have more of a cool tone. And we have this watercolor illustration. The watercolor I used in this is actually from the company known as Zila. I think you could also pronounce the company name as Zyler, so Z-I-E-L-E-R. They sent me some art supplies to try out, and although not entirely impressed with these watercolors, I did like the setup of the watercolors, so they were a great travel kit, and I did this illustration while I was around my grandmother's house. Obviously, that was when the restrictions were eased. So this page, I was kind of experimenting with the ink in question. Now, it wouldn't be perfect because obviously this is not the paper that I ended up using, but it was very much just a patch test just to see how things would go. Now, this is the actual sketch that I did for Tivy. Now, I really, really love this sketch. It is so pretty, and I pretty much just transferred it onto a piece of paper and then painted it with my inks. So at the time that Zila actually sent me the art supplies, I was actually going to do a video on it, but it never ended up happening. But I actually wrote down my thoughts of the Zila watercolor. So again, we have more Zila watercolor over here. If you want to know my thoughts on the Zila watercolor, you can just pause and read what I have here. So then we have some conceptual pieces of artwork. I wasn't actually sure of what I wanted, so I was kind of going with the expression of me being on antidepressants and also how it makes me feel as well. I think this was a page of, I don't know what I want to draw. I was trying to use more abstract concepts. I do kind of like the idea of this, but I just felt like it wasn't executed that well, especially that face. Oh my god. Ah. It's a no from me. So then we have some sketches of Loki. Not my best work, I've got to admit, but I think at this point I was actually incredibly rusty with drawing. I hadn't really drawn all that much. You can tell because this sketchbook, I started in the July and I didn't actually finish this sketchbook until mid-January of this year. So it took over 6 months. And with this type of sketchbook, I've completed this type of sketchbook in the course of a month before. So then we have a picture of Nicholas and Isla. So I did this when I went round to my dad's. When the restrictions eased a bit, we went to go visit my dad, and I think it's really, really cute. It's done in Hemi gouache. That palette is great for traveling around with. The only problem is it's heavy. Whenever I use my gouache or watercolor in my sketchbook, I usually use the page on the left hand side as my mixing palette or just a swatch page. I just love Isla's little face, it's so cute. I really need to pick up my gouache again because it's so cute. Then I have another illustration inspired by Tivy. I think I wanted to do something a little bit similar to Tivy and kind of make it into a series of illustrations, but it never ended up happening. So we just have these really rough sketches. This is actually Tivy's brother, Abereron. So we have Tivy and Abereron. Another gouache piece. Oh my god. This is actually in reference to one of my Sims screenshots that I actually took. I loved it so much that I just wanted to paint it again in my sketchbook. So then we have another gouache piece. This is actually Queen Veronica of Verona. So she is the matriarch of Verona. And she has a backstory where it's kind of like the sun and the moon. So she originally is from a kingdom known as Solaro, and Solaro is the sun and Leiluna is the moon, and River is actually the princess of Leiluna. So I kind of wanted to do the sun and moon concept, and I think I might come back to this concept in terms of a piece of artwork in the future, because I really like that whole prequel idea to my current storyline that I've got going on. But I really love the way the sky came out. Just, oh my god, it's so pretty. I love my gouache pieces, but they take forever. I don't know whether this is pen or whether this is pencil. I think this is pen. Yeah, this is pen. But this is a better perspective of the face than whatever that was. Then we have planning for my October sketchbook. So this was actually just trying to decide what should I do the cover as, and I came up with this sort of composition but fleshed it out more digitally. So a picture of Brandon and Lucille that I never really fleshed out all too much, but I love the whole purple pencil in here with the purples in terms of the watercolour over here. It goes so well together. So in October, that's when I started my traditional commissions. I now have digital commissions, but this was when I first started. She asked for, I think it's her niece and nephew as Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk. So there was a lot of referencing going on here, both on the photos that were sent to me as well as both characters in general. She wanted a little bit more of a detailed background, so I did the smashing through the wall and a city skyline. So this next illustration is of me, my sister and my dad. To me, it's so weird seeing my dad in my style. He's changed so much over the years. So then I was doing a picture of my nan and her new puppy. She got a puppy in the middle of last year and he's so cute. His name is also Genghis, but this was like a very rough starting sketch that I never really finished or fleshed out. Maybe eventually I will. Then we have another commission in this sketchbook. So I have a tiny little sketch that I blew up into A5 for May's commission. With the traditional commissions, I either do sketches digitally or traditionally. This was when I was starting out and I needed to sketch more traditionally, so I did a lot of the commission sketches traditionally in my sketchbook. And we have more commissions, which is so lovely. So we have two characters. I cannot remember which one's which, but one of the characters is Shauna and the other one is an Alexandria. And then these two characters, we have Fabian and Celeste from Celestial Royals. She actually does Sims screenshots of them, so she actually sent me a very good reference for them in a similar looking pose. So it was actually very easy to translate them into my art style. So after those commission sketches, I left this sketchbook dormant for ages. Up until the point where it was the 7th of January. This was before I broke my toe, because I broke it on the 12th of January. So all these words around me were kind of how I was feeling just in general. So some of the words around here was, I miss Wales, because I did. Nervous, snow, ice, because it was snowing every other weekend. I was watching a lot of Torchwood, panicking, breathing. I thought of teddy bear fluff because I have this jacket that's just so puffy and fluffy. I was also watching Hitalia. I wanted to be more authentic. Even though I am authentic on this channel, I wanted to open up more, and this was around the time that I was considering putting up my mental health video. And on this side, we have calm down and stop, which is basically me just telling me to like, calm down, stop, you're okay, stop self-sabotaging yourself. I think this was done in the Zila inks as well. So I think this is White Knight's watercolour. This is of Anastasia and Nathaniel. So these are Loki's grandparents on her father's side. So these last 2 pages were actually done while I was in hospital waiting to get my operation for my toe. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but for me, a sketchbook is like a diary. Even though you can draw anything you want, you as the artist remembers what you did that day or what happened that day. And this day, I actually drew this while I was waiting for my operation for my broken toe on the 20th of January. So this is Sajini and this is Jacob. I hadn't drawn in a while, and also I was still a bit groggy. I think I finished the sketch after the operation, but I did start it before, so it does look a bit wonky because the medication was still kicking in at the time. I think this was done the same day, but this was of Micah and Yumi. It's very, very sketchy. I think this was definitely after the operation. I was still really, really groggy, and I actually had the needle in my left hand, so I couldn't really draw properly for several days. I was still really shaky. These 2 on the back were literally just marker testers, so nothing really else to this sketchbook. So this next sketchbook, I haven't really got much to explain. I will go over the stickers. So a Scrawlrbox sticker, and then the rest of the stickers are actually mine. These 2 stickers come from my Acryl Mermaids set, and these 3 come from my Kingdom Keys set. They can be found on my Etsy, whereas this sticker, I don't really sell the sticker. I usually use this sticker or whichever stickers I've got available as little freebies in my physical shop orders. But this sketchbook holds my Marianne Arch planning, and I wasn't originally going to show this sketchbook because I still have a couple of pages at the end to do. However, I've just wanted to start a new sketchbook. And also this has a couple of extra sketches that didn't really make it as the final illustrations. If you want to actually see a showcase of the final illustrations for Marianne Arch, I will leave a link to that video in the iCard because I've actually already shown off the final illustrations, and I have actually made the final illustrations of Marianne Arch into an art book if you're interested. I will leave a link to it down below in the description. So day 1, Crystal. I was thinking Verona, obviously the Crystal Kingdom. I was actually originally thinking of a character piece rather than a scenery piece, but I eventually went for a scenery piece because I thought it would just open up the month so much better. And also I need to improve on my scenery pieces. This is more day 1 planning. This I think is day 3. I didn't really have a composition in mind for day 2 at all. I think, yeah, day 2 I actually did after day 3's composition, because all of these sketches I started planning back in February for Marianne Arch. So I was just thinking, if I come up with an idea for a certain illustration after the current day, it's not going to matter too much, because this is just the planning sketchbook. The planning sketchbook is meant to be the sketchbook of complete and utter mess and chaos, which is notes, working things out, not necessarily final pieces. Then we have Micah and Yumi. I think I did a video for day 4 and day 5's illustrations. So this is day 5. We have day 6. So day 6 is interesting because it's actually 2 illustrations that I put together digitally. I find it really fascinating just to have a look behind the illustrations and the process to get to the final illustration. So then we have day 8, which was Distant. I was fiddling around with a composition, which is Brandon, and then day 9 was Ribbon. I did a little picture of Isla again. Oh, I love drawing Isla, she's so cute. Day 10 was Pocket. This one was a more difficult one for me because I couldn't really think of what to do for Pocket, but I finally decided on a pocket hanky idea. You can see in the notes that it says pocket full of sunshine. She put her hands in his pockets. I knew that day 11 was going to be in reference to a recent story post that I did because it was just perfect for that. And along Marriner, there's a sort of through line of a story of what's going to happen. I don't want to say too much about Holly and Sparrow's story because in the Sims series that I'm doing on my second channel, I'm just about to get into that with the debutante ball. So I knew that I wanted day 11 drop to be of Holly and Sparrow, with Holly dropping to her knees. It's in reference to a Sims story post that I did around that time. I was just trying to figure out which way I wanted the characters to face. Day 12, Seal. I thought of a royal seal. Day 13, Escape. There's only one thumbnail for. Day 14 was Lost. Now I had this idea of Rona, Brandon's dog, being lost. I wanted to do Lucille and Rona in the same shot, but then I had the idea of doing Rona actually facing upwards towards the viewer of the piece. So us, the viewer of the piece, is actually Lucille looking down at the little dog, Rona. And this was a lot of referencing. I really love this sketch. Don't get me wrong, it's a bit wonky, but considering I haven't really drawn a dog in this much detail before, I think I did an okay job. For some reason, I just love when my sketches overlap. It does make it harder for people to understand them, but from a visual perspective, from my sketchbook, it just makes it look more filled. So this is King James of Verona. This one was combining the themes of history and crown. So Nicholas's parents, Thomas and Camilla, when they met. This is Holly Blue's mother, Nymphalidae. After the halfway point, I usually start to get really burnt out on art challenges. So maybe in the future, just doing half of an art challenge or something for the month would be good for me. I think you might be able to tell that by this point, I started to get burnt out on my ideas. Now don't get me wrong, I loved writing my own prompt list, doing my own thing. However, this happens with every art challenge that I've ever done, is that after the halfway point, about 2 weeks or so, that's when I start to flake. I lose momentum. Day 19 plot is kind of a spoiler for the future of what's going to happen. It doesn't spoil too much because we already know that Holly and Sparrow are promised to each other, and this is slightly later in the timeline when they're married and they're about to have a baby. It kind of alludes to what Holly might actually be doing. So I wouldn't say it's a spoiler, but it's kind of a hint, if that makes sense. Moonlight was really sad. I definitely spruced this one up digitally. You have Jonathan and River. Dream, I was thinking about doing foreshortening, as you can probably see by this little planning sketch, but it never ended up happening. And some of the sketches I actually did directly on the watercolour paper itself, because I just decided, you know what? No, I'm not going to sit here all day and transfer images. So by the end of it, I decided to do a little scrappy sketch and then just do the sketch onto the watercolour paper itself. Flooded, numb. Oh wow, this is slightly confusing. So we have day 24, which was Trap. So these were based off of Sims screenshots that I'd already taken because I already liked the composition that I had. When coming up with compositions, using The Sims is actually a really good thing. You can have the characters be posed in different ways and have different angles using the camera and see exactly how that pose would work at that specific camera angle. We have Callan and Briar. A little bassinet down here. This is because I couldn't be bothered to draw the baby and was like, you know what, let's just have a zoomed out version where it's just the window. And also the theme was more so snowy, so I didn't really want the focus to be on the character, more so of the atmosphere, the environment. 28, Explore. This composition was used. It wasn't particularly well fleshed out, but it was kind of an idea of what I wanted, which is how all of the other compositions can be explained. However, I love this composition of Hayako just hanging off the edge. That was referring to the time in Halley where Taifi was being visited by Hisoki. This looks really random, and that's because it is. It was for making my art books. It was for the typography I needed for the art books. Then we have Crown Prince Mallory of Huxley. I can't actually remember exactly when I did this or where I did this. I don't know. It's been a while. And this was just before I revealed the vampire family. For those of you on the art channel, I have a vampire royal family, as well as my other royals that I have. Just expands the world and the lore building and everything else. So the last picture in this sketchbook, or the last two even, I didn't realise that there was this one. I think I ditched this one because I wasn't really feeling it. But we have a picture of Brandon and Lucille. And I really love these little headshots. I'd recently put up digital commissions for headshots at the time, and I kind of wanted to give traditional headshots a whirl just in my sketchbook. So I did a picture of Brandon and Lucille as a little practice. So yeah, that was my sketchbook tour. I hope you enjoyed it. This was very much an old style video for me. Now there is actually a couple of pages in the back of this sketchbook, but I just wanted to start a new one. I thought, why not just film the sketchbook tour and then start a new sketchbook. But yeah, if you like this video, you can like and subscribe if you haven't already, with post notifications on for post notifications for every time I upload a video. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!